A judge in Ireland is warning people about phone use during the high-profile proceedings against MMA fighter Conor McGregor after at least one photo was leaked from inside the courtroom. We're going to break down the very latest from this sexual assault case. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Justice Alexander Owens, a judge of the Irish High Court, says there will be an investigation into how a screenshot of civil court proceedings involving Conor McGregor made its way out to the public. And we know that's a big no-no here in the States. Clearly, it's a problem there, too. There's no recording allowed inside of that courthouse, but the court has been notified of at least one picture that is circulated out there after it appears someone took a photo of a live feed that was available for an overflow group, so the people that weren't able to make it into the courtroom. And by the way, this comes after someone also allegedly tried to film the jury earlier in the week. Now, this court case is huge. It's big news worldwide right now as McGregor faces accusations of sexual assault. So, what is this about? Well, a hairstylist named Nikita Hand says that Conor McGregor, who is famous around the world for his years spent as a mixed martial artist, raped her in a Dublin hotel room in 2018 after a Christmas party. And also included in this case is a second man named James Lawrence. She claims he also sexually assaulted her that night as well. Now, McGregor was in fact the subject of a criminal investigation, but the director of public prosecutions in Ireland decided in 2020 not to move forward with charges, citing insufficient evidence for a reasonable prospect of conviction. Both men have denied the allegations, reportedly saying that if anything happened, anything was consensual. And last week, the jury heard testimony from Nikita herself about what happened that night. She says she knew McGregor through her friend group and went with him to the Beacon Hotel after a Christmas party at her job, where she admitted that she consumed alcohol, that she did cocaine. And during her testimony, Nikita said that McGregor came on to her, didn't listen when she told him that she was uncomfortable. On the stand, she said, "I tried to talk him around, that I didn't want to have sex and wasn't there for anything like that. He just wasn't taking no for an answer. He pinned me down on the bed. I held my hands to my chest. He put his body weight on top of me." And Nikita says she was sexually assaulted again later by McGregor's friend James Lawrence. The thing about that, though, is she didn't actually remember it happening. Yeah, she claims she only learned of that when she reported the attack to the police at a later date and was told that Lawrence had admitted to having sex with her also on that same night. So obviously there are potential issues of credibility and what really happened. We'll get into that. But I want to talk now about the digital evidence, because the jury saw CCTV footage of Nikita, McGregor, and Lawrence and a friend of Nikita's who'd gone with them to the penthouse. There is apparently video from after the alleged assault when McGregor was getting into the elevator to leave the hotel, and it allegedly shows Nikita appearing to kiss McGregor on the arm. And Nikita said in court that she doesn't remember that. And McGregor's attorneys jumped on that because they also claim that the video at one point shows the two hugging. In separate CCTV footage, Nikita can be seen in the basement of the hotel with James Lawrence. The two were reportedly struggling to stay steady because of how intoxicated they were. But the barrister, the lawyer, said that Nikita at one point kissed Lawrence on the cheek. And at another point, the two reportedly had their arms around each other. Now, Nikita cried in court when the video was played because she said she had no recollection of any of this happening. Now, before she went home that day, Nikita said that she went to her manager's home to drop off the keys to the salon and told her, this manager, that Conor McGregor had raped her. But on cross-examination, McGregor's attorneys really pressed Nikita, asking how she could remember some parts of the night and not other parts of the night. And they wanted to know why she had her friends and family delete any messages related to this incident as well. Nikita says that she was just scared of McGregor. She believed that he would kill her if news of the alleged assault got out. On rebuttal, her own attorney showed her photos of the outfit that she was wearing that night, which had been torn, or apparently had been torn. And she said the tear was from McGregor pulling aggressively on that jumpsuit. According to testimony in court, Nikita told multiple people that she had been raped, but refused to name who it was. Now, as we're sorting through this legal case surrounding Conor McGregor, and it is so disturbing, can I just take, a minute to tell you guys about something else, something positive, something that I think you're actually going to really love? Would you want cash back when you buy gas, groceries, food? Well, if you do, that's where our amazing partner and sponsor of Sidebar comes in, Upside. So Upside is a free app, so easy to use, it gets you real cash back. So look here, I used Upside to find a gas station, I claimed an offer, paid with my credit card, followed the steps on the app, I got cash back. And you can use Upside at all different kinds of places, restaurants, convenience stores. So to find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen. And make sure to use our promo code SIDEBAR and you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Okay, but back to this. Now, court resumed on Tuesday with a testimony from a paramedic, and he said that a woman was very distressed, meaning Nikita, and that she had physical markings on her. She told the paramedic that she had been sexually assaulted, and on the way to the hospital, he testified she had a panic attack. And the jury saw video from inside that ambulance as Nikita was taken to the hospital. Nikita herself actually had to leave the courtroom as the video was being played. Her attorney pointed out that when the paramedic examined the lower half of Nikita's body, there was obvious bruising on her thighs. Another paramedic took the stand, testified that she examined Nikita and also saw bruising on her chest, around her neck, down her legs. She had said that she, quote, hadn't seen someone so bruised in a long time. And more than a week after the alleged attack, Nikita went to her regular doctor, Emma Quinn, and Dr. Quinn testified that Nikita told her that she had been assaulted and said she was having pain in her neck. Dr. Quinn said it was likely that Nikita had internal bruising consistent with being forcibly held down. Another doctor at the same practice who had known Nikita since she was a child said that she had dealt with anxiety in the past, and then after this alleged incident, this alleged attack, she couldn't go to work because her anxiety and depression were getting worse and worse. He even claimed that she was struggling with PTSD. Now, on the other hand, a representative for Conor McGregor has maintained his innocence, saying in a statement, after an exhaustive investigation conducted by the police, which in addition to interviews of the plaintiff included interviewing numerous sources, obtaining witness statements, examining closed-circuit footage, and the cooperation of Conor McGregor, these allegations were categorically rejected. The plaintiff knows the facts contradict the assertions in this lawsuit. Mr. McGregor will dispute any claims and is confident that justice will prevail. So let's talk about this. Let's make sense of it. I want to bring in attorney Christa Ramey, who has a specialization in these kinds of cases. Christa, thanks so much for coming on. Now, remember, this is a civil case. This is not a criminal case, civil case. Sensation, but a lot of evidence is coming in, a lot of testimonies coming in. What stands out to you?
Well, a couple of things. One, I'm grateful that in the U.S. we have rape shield laws that protect victims so they aren't victim shamed to this extent. I think that the way the evidence is coming in here, particularly how she was drinking and the cocaine use, it would have been handled much differently in a U.S. court.
Well, before you move on, how would it have been handled differently? Because any defendant has a right to defend himself and question her credibility.
Here in California, evidence of intoxication cannot be put on by the person defending the claim against the rape. It can only be brought on by the victim as evidence of consent. So here, the evidence that she had been partying with these two gentlemen voluntarily, doing cocaine and alcohol all evening, probably wouldn't have come in unless it was brought in specifically by her, or evidence that she could not consent because she was so intoxicated.
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, couldn't it have come in to say about her recollection, her memory?
If it's brought in by her.
If it's brought in by her. Okay. So that's the difference. That's the difference between both jurisdictions. Yeah.
Correct. And so just like victims' past sexual conduct cannot be brought in as evidence of consent by the defense in a rape case, similar to that. But what does stand out to me is, despite the closed caption television footage, you have all of this corroborating evidence of something that was very violent that happened to her. And with the defense saying, but she wanted it. That's what she signed up for. So I think that because you have this really graphic evidence of what can only be a sexual assault, with bruising, with having to remove a feminine hygiene project with forceps, horrific to think what she went through. And you can imagine it. And then the closed caption footage shows her stumbling, maybe kissing McGregor, but I don't know that it really tells the complete story. You have to look at all of the evidence. And I think all of the evidence here tells you a story of something that very violent that happened that night.
Look, I think there's something also to be said about how difficult this must be for her to make a claim against one of the most internationally renowned mixed martial artist. He is incredibly famous. And, you know, you take these allegations as true. He's an aggressive guy, violent guy. His business is violence. And she says that her life was in fear. Although there are issues here that are being exploited by his attorneys that we can't just put to the side. I mean, talk about that CCTV footage. Is it concerning to you that she's kissing his arm, that she's hugging Lawrence, that she's giving him a kiss? He leaves the hotel alone at one point. I mean, how isn't that problematic for her lawyer's side?
It's problematic, but it's not unexplainable. It's something that you see frequently when someone has endured such an attack. You see that. It's not uncommon. You're trying to get out of there, and she is intoxicated. So you add that to it. You're not seeing behavior that wouldn't be abnormal. If I'm trying to escape, here's what you do. There's fight, there's flight, there's fawn, and there's freeze. She is in the fawn stage right now. And these are common elements of trauma, common reactions to trauma. And fawn is one of them. And a psychologist that is explaining what she is going through in her trauma can explain this. She has been diagnosed with PTSD. She's got the signs of PTSD. And when you look at her trauma experience, the fawning is not unusual at all.
I think the physical evidence is really bad for Conor McGregor. But having said that, again, it's a he said, she said situation. And I wish we had cameras to capture more of what's being said and some of the reactions that we're seeing as well. And I also would love to see that CCTV footage for myself. Talk to me, though, about the idea of, and I saw this actually in the Harvey Weinstein case. When you have sexual assault cases, I think it becomes even more problematic if someone takes a photo in that courtroom. You know what? I was in that Harvey Weinstein trial, and while Annabella Sciorra was testifying, again, she says that Harvey Weinstein assaulted her, she stopped her testimony. I remember being there and said, I'm sorry, is someone filming? Is someone filming or someone taking a photograph? And the whole courtroom went silent. Nobody was doing that. But it kind of reminded you about how difficult this was for her to testify about this, and the idea that someone would be filming her or recording her or taking a picture of her. It becomes even more problematic in a case like this, and as we're talking about what's happening in that Irish courtroom.
Oh yeah, and you've got a packed courtroom there. You've got an overflow, courtroom as well. So it's very problematic. A lot of, here in the U.S., a lot of women will file lawsuits under pseudonyms so they can prevent their names from being in the public eye. Their names still get known to the other side, but not to everybody. And the judge rightly lost his mind when he realized that there had been, a picture taken in that courtroom or video taken in that courtroom. That is completely not permitted in any courtroom that I've ever been in the U.S. You have to have permission and consent of the court to take a photo. And, when we are watching videos of trials that are happening here in the U.S., that's because the court has given permission for that to happen. And I've had cases where we've just wanted to take a picture because maybe we have a new lawyer that's tried their first case and we want to get a picture with the California seal in the courtroom. We have to get consent to do that in an empty courtroom. So yes, it is very, very serious, and it can be paralyzing for the person that is trying to tell something that happened to them that is really very personal and very shameful in some respects for victims. They do feel that shame of letting that happen to themselves. And they go through that as part of their trauma experience as well. So having a photo taken or a video taken of you while you are testifying is just not cool.
Or just even a picture of a photo of any part of the proceedings if that's not allowed. And I think the judge said he might hold someone in contempt if that's what the investigation uncovers. Let me ask you this about the memory aspect of it. So the idea that she does not recall the alleged rape by Mr. Lawrence. How do you think about that? Is that typical? Is that an issue of her credibility? Because again, you compare that with what I mentioned before. I think it helps her credibility to say she filed a lawsuit against Conor McGregor. Now, someone would say, oh, she's just it's a payday, right? She's just trying to get a payday from him. But, to put herself on the public stage like that and have to testify about what happened, it's a really, really personal, sometimes humiliating experience. If she's just somebody who suffers from anxiety, I'm sure it's not easy. It can be incredibly difficult. But at the same time, going back to issues of her credibility, If she doesn't remember James Lawrence, what she says sexually assaulting her, what do you make of that?
Again, trauma responses are different in every person, and how we process trauma and remember trauma. Oftentimes you do have victims of assault that don't remember every detail of what happened to them during the course of that assault. Now, it is unusual for her to remember that one person assaulted her, but not another. I do agree with that. It's not very common, but, there are parts of this night that she has just blocked out, which is not uncommon. And again, I think that that's something that you have your psychologist tell you, talk to this jury about as an expert witness during the testimony. It can be more problematic if it wasn't for the fact that she has told a lot of people at that time what had happened to her. So she does tell someone that McGregor did this to her, and she also does go to the hospital and get tested. Yeah. She's the paramedics. This is all like corroborating evidence of what happened. So I think that it helps with that evidence. It's a little problematic for her.
Do you think it's a big issue for her that she allegedly told her family and friends to delete the messages about what happened?
I have kids that I have for clients that do this often. I've never had an adult do it, but I think that it also goes to the fear of someone so powerful, that's kind of like that Harvey Weinstein or P. Diddy figure, that can really, maybe have a negative impact on your life if you do something wrong here. So I'm not surprised. It's not very common, but again, who knows what she's thinking as she is fearful for what she might be getting into.
So I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know the full rules of an Irish courtroom or Irish law. I believe they say the standard, most that I know is the standard, I think, is balance of probabilities. It's very similar, I think, to preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not that this happened. But what I don't know is whether or not she can call Conor McGregor as a witness, or whether he will choose to take the stand in his own defense. If you have an idea about what the rules are, please let me know. But what do you think the likelihood is that he will actually take the stand and give his side of the story?
Well, if it was in the U.S., he would take the stand. And if I were her attorney, I would be calling him probably as one of my very first witnesses in the case before I put my own client on. But I don't know. I assume that the laws are very similar, because I know that, if I'm going way back to law school, that British law is based upon, our law is based upon that, So I think that Irish coming out of British the same kind of jurisprudence, I would imagine it's similar. But again, I'm just spitballing here. I don't really know.
Do you think it would help him to be on the stand? Do you think, I don't know how he would testify. He's quite the personality. He's gotten in trouble with the law in the past. I'm curious, if you were representing Miss Hand and you had the opportunity to question Conor McGregor, what strategy, what tactics would you use to get out what you want to say is the truth or issues of his credibility?
I think that someone like him is probably very volatile and would show his colors very easily. Men like that typically do not like a female litigator cross-examining them because they don't like to give up that kind of control, and to maintain proper decorum in a courtroom against someone who is probably smarter than they are when it comes to these things would be very difficult for him, to challenge. So I think that it would be, I would love to see that. I think it'd be fantastic if she has a female lawyer to watch him be cross-examined.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll keep a careful eye on what's happening there. It's difficult with no video. We're getting sent reports, especially from international publications, about what is happening in that courtroom day in and day out. But we'll keep a careful eye on it, see where it goes next. Christa Ramey, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Jess.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.